Atlantic City, June 19, 2015, 3:02 a.m. The neon lights of the Borgata Casino cast their perpetual glow across the nearly empty gaming floor. High above the slot machines and blackjack tables, security cameras capture every movement with mechanical precision. In the exclusive Diamond Lounge, tucked away on the casino's upper level, a lone bartender moves through his closing routine with practiced efficiency. Eddie Callahan wipes down marble counters still sticky with champagne spills from another night of excess. Crystal glasses catch the ambient light as he stacks them with methodical care. The usual end-of-shift ritual that he's performed thousands of times before? Nothing appears unusual. Nothing suggests that in 17 minutes he'll walk out of this casino carrying $21 million in cash. The security footage shows him wheeling a supply cart toward the service corridor, its contents hidden beneath liquor boxes and black trash bags. To anyone watching, it's just another night of routine maintenance. But concealed inside that cart lies one of the most audacious thefts in casino history. Casinos guard their main vaults like Fort Knox, with layers of security, biometric scanners, and armed guards. Motion detectors track every footstep near the counting rooms. Cameras monitor every angle of the gaming floor. Yet somehow, they forgot about the liquor cabinet. Before we unravel how a working-class bartender orchestrated one of Atlantic City's most baffling heists, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you're enjoying this story. And in the comments below, let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. Eddie Callahan wasn't supposed to be extraordinary. At 34, he'd spent nearly a decade perfecting the art of invisibility that every service worker masters. He mixed martinis for celebrities whose names appeared in gossip columns, handled belligerent drunks with diplomatic charm, and managed the Diamond Lounge's busiest shifts with the efficiency of a machine. The Diamond Lounge wasn't just any bar. Perched high above the main casino floor, it catered to high rollers who thought nothing of tipping in $100 bills. Private booths hosted poker games, where the ante exceeded most people's annual salaries. Champagne bottles worth more than cars were opened with casual indifference. Eddie had witnessed it all from behind his mahogany fortress. He'd served drinks to Wall Street executives celebrating million-dollar bonuses, watched trust fund heirs lose inheritance money on single hands of blackjack, and listened to oil executives debate deals worth billions while sipping 30-year-old scotch. But Eddie Callahan lived in a different world. His cramped one-bedroom condo in Ventnor City was a universe away from the opulence he served nightly. Alimony payments to his ex-wife consumed half his income. Gambling debts, an occupational hazard in Atlantic City, ate away at the rest. He drove a 12-year-old Honda with a rattling muffler and shopped for groceries with coupons. The irony wasn't lost on him. Every night, he watched people casually waste more money than he'd see in a lifetime. They left tips on the bar that exceeded his weekly salary, then stumbled away to lose even more at the tables below. What made Eddie different from countless other resentful service workers wasn't his bitterness. It was his observation skills. 9 years behind that bar had taught him to notice everything, while appearing to notice nothing. He cataloged the rhythms of the casino, the blind spots and security protocols, and most importantly, the trust that everyone placed in the invisible bartender. Bartenders in casino lounges weren't just drink mixers. They were informal bankers, handling thousands in tips every shift. They processed comp slips worth hundreds of dollars, managed cash floats for special events, and had access to areas that even regular casino employees couldn't enter. The Diamond Lounge operated its own miniature economy. On busy nights, especially during major boxing matches or celebrity appearances, bartenders would stuff envelopes with cash tips that couldn't fit in their regular till. These envelopes went into staff lockers, simple metal compartments originally installed for personal belongings, but repurposed as temporary storage for the overflow of cash that the lounge generated. Eddie noticed something that security consultants and casino management had missed. Those lockers had become unofficial vault extensions, holding tens of thousands in cash on busy nights. The money sat there for hours, sometimes overnight, waiting for the morning count and deposit. The locks were ancient, simple combination models that a determined person could open with minimal effort. The locker area was monitored, but casually. Security focused on the gaming floor below, not on staff storage areas that posed no obvious threat. Most crucially, Eddie realized that nobody was really watching the watchers. Casino surveillance was designed to catch cheating customers and employee theft at the point of service. But the cash sitting in those lockers existed in a blind spot between collection and official counting. Eddie's criminal education began with necessity, not ambition. Facing garnishment of his wages for unpaid gambling debts, he started with what many would consider petty theft. A 20 here, a 50 there, skimmed from the cash tips before they went into the envelopes. He replaced the stolen bills with his own smaller denominations, making the envelopes feel appropriately thick while pocketing the difference. It was a survival technique more than grand larceny, just enough to keep his creditors at bay while appearing to maintain his honest reputation. But this small-scale theft provided Eddie with invaluable intelligence. He learned which co-workers were careless with locker combinations, often leaving them written on pieces of paper or using predictable numbers. He memorized the timing of security rounds and cash pickup schedules. Most importantly, he discovered just how sloppy the casino's internal accounting could be. The Diamond Lounge processed so much cash that small discrepancies were written off as counting errors or customer disputes. Audits focused on major transactions, not the overflow cash that bartenders handled informally. As long as the major deposits roughly matched expectations, nobody investigated missing 20s and 50s. This gave Eddie confidence, but also revealed a much larger opportunity. On peak nights, major holidays, championship boxing matches, or celebrity visits, the staff lockers would overflow with cash. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in tips and overflow cash would sit in those simple metal boxes, protected by nothing more than combination locks and the assumption that nobody would be bold enough to steal from a casino. Eddie began documenting these patterns with the precision of a researcher. He noted which events generated the most cash, which shifts were the busiest, and which security procedures were most relaxed. He identified the optimal times when cash accumulated in the lockers but hadn't yet been collected for official counting. The breakthrough came when Eddie realized he could obtain duplicate locker keys. A friend who worked in casino maintenance owed him gambling debts and access to the master key system. For $500, Eddie acquired copies of keys that could open any locker in the staff area. But Eddie wasn't ready to move yet. He understood that a major theft would trigger massive investigation, and he needed an exit strategy that went beyond simple theft. He rented a storage unit in Camden under a false name, established a paper trail suggesting financial hardship that might justify leaving Atlantic City, and most crucially, began researching how to disappear completely. The plan that emerged wasn't the work of a desperate bartender. It was the careful preparation of someone who understood that stealing from a casino meant you could never live a normal life again. Father's Day weekend 2015 promised to be exceptional. A major boxing promotion at the Borgata had attracted high rollers from across the East Coast. The Diamond Lounge was booked solid with private parties, celebrity appearances, and the kind of conspicuous consumption that generated massive cash tips. Eddie had been planning this weekend for months. He'd arranged to work the closing shift, ensuring he'd be alone in the lounge during the crucial hours after midnight. He'd borrowed a van from a cousin, claiming he needed to move furniture. Most importantly, he'd studied the weekend security schedule and identified a narrow window when surveillance would be minimal. The evening began like any other peak night at the Diamond Lounge. Wealthy boxing fans celebrated early wins and commiserated over losses with expensive drinks. Celebrities held court in private booths, attracting crowds of admirers who competed to buy rounds of premium champagne. By midnight, the cash registers were overflowing, and bartenders had begun stuffing envelopes with overflow tips and deposits. Eddie worked his shift with professional calm, serving drinks and collecting tips while mentally cataloging the growing fortune accumulating in the staff lockers. Each envelope represented thousands in cash, tips from high rollers who treated $100 bills like pocket change. As closing time approached, Eddie's co-workers finished their cleanup and departed, leaving him alone to complete the final shutdown procedures. This was routine. The most senior bartender often handled closing duties alone, ensuring that all cash was properly secured and the lounge was ready for the next day's service. At 2:53 a.m., Eddie began the performance of his life. The security footage that would later be analyzed frame by frame shows Eddie Callahan moving through his closing routine with complete normalcy. He wipes down surfaces, stacks glasses, and organizes inventory with the same methodical approach he'd demonstrated for 9 years. At 3:02 a.m., he approaches the staff locker area with his usual casual demeanor. To security cameras, it appears he's simply checking that all lockers are properly secured, a standard closing procedure. But Eddie has memorized every combination and holds duplicate keys for backup. The first locker opens smoothly. Inside, Eddie finds 3 envelopes stuffed with cash from the night's biggest spenders. He estimates $20,000 just in the first compartment. The second locker yields even more. High roller tips from private parties that had been celebrating all evening. Working with surgical precision, Eddie transfers the envelopes to duffel bags he's hidden behind cleaning supplies. His movements remain calm and deliberate. He understands that any sign of hurried activity might trigger scrutiny from security monitors. Locker after locker yields its fortune. Overflow cash from busy registers, tip pools from special events, and deposits that should have been collected hours earlier, but remain forgotten in the weekend chaos. The duffel bags grow heavy with currency, mostly hundreds and fifties, the denominations favored by high-rolling casino patrons. By 3:12 a.m., Eddie has emptied 17 lockers containing approximately $21 million in cash. The sum is staggering, far beyond anything he'd imagined possible. But he's committed now, and panic isn't an option. Eddie loads the duffel bags into a supply cart, the same type he's used thousands of times to transport liquor and cleaning supplies. He covers the bags with empty boxes and black trash bags, creating the appearance of routine waste disposal. At 3:19 a.m., Eddie wheels the cart toward the service elevator, moving with the same unhurried pace he's maintained throughout the operation. Security cameras capture a casino employee performing routine end-of-shift duties, nothing more. The elevator descends to the loading dock level, where delivery trucks arrive each morning with fresh supplies. Eddie's borrowed van waits in the shadows between legitimate service vehicles, invisible among the commercial traffic that keeps the casino operational. At 3:27 a.m., Eddie Callahan disappears into the Atlantic City night, carrying one of the largest cash thefts in casino history. The discovery came during the routine morning audit. Casino supervisors arriving for the day shift found the Diamond Lounge properly cleaned and organized, showing no obvious signs of disturbance. But when they opened the staff lockers to collect the previous night's deposits, they found empty compartments where millions should have been waiting. Initial confusion gave way to growing panic as supervisors realized the scope of the theft. This wasn't a simple case of employee pilfering or accounting errors. $21 million had vanished overnight, along with the bartender who'd been trusted to secure it. Casino executives faced a nightmare scenario. The stolen money belonged not just to the house, but to high-profile customers whose tips and private gambling stakes had been temporarily stored in the lockers. Wealthy patrons who valued discretion above all else now faced the possibility of their gambling activities becoming part of a criminal investigation. The Borgata's management understood that publicity could be more damaging than the financial loss. Casinos depend on reputation, the belief that money is safe, games are fair, and security is impenetrable. News of a bartender walking away with $21 million would shatter confidence among the high rollers who generated the casino's most profitable revenue. Emergency meetings convened throughout the morning. Legal teams discussed options for containing the story. Security directors reviewed footage, looking for any sign they'd missed. Public relations specialists crafted strategies for managing potential media attention. But Eddie Callahan had simply vanished. His apartment in Ventnor City was found empty, with no signs of hasty departure. Unpaid bills remained on the kitchen table. His car sat in the driveway. There was no forwarding address, no final paychecks collected, no indication of where he might have gone. The FBI was notified, launching a federal investigation into what appeared to be one of the most successful casino thefts ever documented. But the trail was already cold. Federal agents descended on Atlantic City with the intensity reserved for major organized crime investigations. The theft of $21 million from a casino triggered concerns about mob involvement, money laundering operations, or sophisticated criminal networks operating within the gaming industry. Lead investigators initially assumed the heist required inside help beyond a single bartender. Casinos employed layers of security specifically designed to prevent this type of theft. The idea that one employee could simply walk away with millions seemed impossible without coordination from multiple insiders. Security footage was analyzed minute by minute, searching for accomplices or suspicious activity. Financial records were subpoenaed to trace any unusual transactions that might indicate preparation for the theft. Eddie's personal life was dissected, looking for connections to organized crime or evidence of criminal sophistication. But the investigation revealed a frustrating truth. Eddie Callahan appeared to be exactly what he seemed, a working-class bartender with gambling debts and financial pressure. No mysterious bank deposits, no contact with known criminals, no evidence of elaborate planning beyond what one determined person could accomplish alone. The simplicity was what made the crime so baffling. Eddie had exploited a basic security flaw that expensive surveillance systems and professional security consultants had overlooked. The staff lockers were a blind spot in the casino's otherwise comprehensive protection protocols. Agents interviewed Eddie's coworkers, searching for any sign of suspicious behavior or advanced planning. But Eddie had been a model employee, reliable, professional, and trusted with significant responsibility. His theft of small amounts over previous months had gone completely unnoticed. The financial investigation proved equally frustrating. Eddie's official income was modest, and his expenses were carefully documented through bank records and credit card statements. There was no evidence of secret accounts, unusual purchases, or financial preparation for disappearance. Most puzzling was the complete absence of the stolen money from financial systems. $21 million in cash should leave some trace as it entered legitimate banking or investment channels. But months of investigation found no evidence that Eddie had attempted to launder or deposit any significant portion of the stolen funds. As months passed without meaningful leads, the investigation spawned numerous theories about Eddie Callahan's fate and the location of the missing millions. The first theory suggested mob involvement. Some investigators believed Eddie had been recruited by organized crime figures who needed an inside man to access casino cash. According to this scenario, Eddie was either killed after delivering the money or relocated with a new identity as payment for his cooperation. Evidence supporting this theory was circumstantial but compelling. Atlantic City's gambling industry had historical connections to organized crime, and $21 million in untraceable cash would be valuable to criminal organizations. Eddie's gambling debts might have made him vulnerable to recruitment or coercion. However, extensive investigation found no evidence linking Eddie to known criminal figures. His gambling was recreational rather than compulsive, and his debts were modest by Atlantic City standards. Wiretaps and surveillance of suspected crime figures revealed no knowledge of or involvement in the casino theft. A second theory proposed that Eddie had fled to Ireland, leveraging his ancestral connections to disappear into a country with limited extradition agreements for nonviolent crimes. This theory gained credibility when investigators discovered Eddie had researched Irish immigration laws and had distant relatives in County Cork. Irish authorities cooperated with the investigation, monitoring ports of entry and following up on reported sightings. But no evidence emerged that Eddie had entered the country, and the relatives he'd researched had no knowledge of his existence or contact attempts. The most disturbing theory suggested Eddie never left New Jersey. According to this scenario, he was murdered shortly after the theft, either by accomplices who wanted to eliminate witnesses or by criminals who discovered his cache of stolen money. The cache remained hidden somewhere in the region, waiting to be discovered. This theory explained the complete absence of financial traces. Dead men don't deposit stolen money. But extensive searches of areas where Eddie might have been killed or buried revealed nothing. Without a body or crime scene, investigators couldn't pursue this angle effectively. One of the most compelling possibilities was that Eddie Callahan had managed to completely reinvent himself, vanishing into anonymity while the $21 million lay hidden in plain sight. This scenario demanded more cunning than investigators believed a casino bartender should possess. But Eddie had quietly built advantages. Years in the service industry had sharpened his ability to read people and anticipate behavior, skills that could easily translate to avoiding capture. His job had also given him deep familiarity with casino cash flow, surveillance blind spots, and financial procedures, knowledge that could help him dodge the common errors most fugitives make. Above all, he had time. The heist may have been the final stage of a careful reinvention, supported by false identities, safe houses, and contingency plans laid months in advance. If Eddie had disappeared, the fate of the $21 million remained even murkier. Cash on that scale is difficult to move or conceal. Yet investigators uncovered no trace of laundering attempts or suspicious deposits. Physical concealment seemed possible, but storing such a volume would require secure space, and searches of Eddie's known connections turned up nothing. International transfer required networks he didn't seem to have. The most plausible theory was that the money remained nearby, broken into smaller caches to be retrieved slowly over time. But this clashed with Eddie's life before the heist, marked by financial desperation and mounting debts. Would a man under pressure have the patience to convert millions over decades? Or had Eddie's boldest gamble been hiding both himself and the fortune so well that years later, investigators still couldn't decide whether they were chasing a ghost, a corpse, or a man quietly living among them?